right, with all due respect, good evening. It is Tuesday, and we visit the most urgent and the emergent question in the country's politics this season. That's church and state. Just how much religion is allowed, and how much religion is enough. Is there anything like enough, really? That's the question we are asking tonight. And I do have the best panel to discuss this in studio with me. I don't think no other brains would be able to help us make sense. I do have Ibrahim Lidome, who's a Muslim scholar. Karibu sana to the program.
Thank you very much.
On my left, I do have Bishop David Okinde. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And of course, I do have lawyer and advocate author Rosanna Christopher.
Thank you.
Right, welcome. Let's just play a clip to keep us and bring us up to speed with what we're going to discuss tonight.
Kituo cha kusajili kesi za mahakama ya upeo leo kilijaa shughuli za mchwa, wahusika wakuu wakiwasili kuwasilisha kesi za kupinga uchaguzi.
Well, as my director tries to find that clip, let's just get a bit of a flavor from our panelists tonight. But let's start with the question. There's this idea that has happened since the last election that the new government or the new office holders are bringing religion too close to power. And they're sort of, if it's not checked, they're sort of meddling with this. That as we've always had, the separation between church and state. Let's start with from the far left. Rosanna, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I believe that the issue that church and state should be separated is a very relevant question. And it is not empty to say that there's too much or they're bringing the government too close to religion. It has historical basis and it has legal basis. And from my training, I would say that Article 8 says that there should be no state religion. And the basis for that is, if we go back to our history, is you'll see that when the church and the state, or religion in general, go in bed, you'll find that there is undesirable consequences that arise from that. And why is that? On one side, we have religion, which believes that it has God on its side. And on the other hand, we have the state, which has what? The instruments of the state, which is the police and other police power. And if you put the two together, the state believes itself to be ordained by God if it does anything that the people do not like. Why? It will say, we have the church on our side, therefore whatever we do doesn't really matter. But on the other side, we have when the church is stronger than the state and they're together, as in the case in the medieval times when the church was the state, you'll find that the church itself eats, or the religion eats, the institutions of the state, and whereby the people, where they say that these are the procedures for changing constitution, these are our rights, that is not listened to because the church says that we are the power and God is on our side. Therefore, whatever the state should do for you and which state you elected doesn't matter. So it is a valid question, and the balance to be struck is one that we still grapple with. Even more, I could say cautiously, more mature democracies like the US still struggle with. And the words of their Supreme Court are that we've always said there should be a wall of separation between church and state, but it's the precise line to place it that remains to be a problem.
Okay, very well said. Bishop, is there a line really to be drawn? And are we sort of teetering too close to this line?
Thank you. I think the first thing we need to appreciate is that Kenya and Kenyans are very religious. We are religious. And therefore, we find religion in almost everything that we do. So things like prayers are part of our national life, so that when we go to state functions, we start our functions with prayers. We get representatives of different religions to come and offer prayers. Our national anthem is a prayer, the whole of it. Our constitution starts by acknowledging God, that we, the people of Kenya, acknowledging the supremacy of God Almighty. That's right at the preamble, before we start saying anything that we want or not, including the article that he has mentioned. We have already declared this is the foundation of what we believe and what we practice. So, as a society, we are a religious people, and we appreciate that God is at the center of what we do. So, how that is expressed is what we can discuss. How we practice it is what we can discuss. But the fact that we are religious is not under discussion.
Yeah.
I have heard some people say that we are a secular nation. We are not.
Okay.
We are not a secular nation.
This is interesting. We are. Sheikh. Yes.
I think I want to begin by correcting something here.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Bishop, I think, is very sensitized on this. When you start talking about state and church, you know, you're leaving me out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about the church, you're talking about the place of worship for Christians.
Yes.
I think let us talk about
Religion.
state and religion. Then I'll feel that I'm included in that also. So it's about state and religion. And Article 8 is very clear. Then our preamble, the preamble of our constitution, is also very clear that we are proud of our diversity, which includes religious diversity. And then the freedom of worship in our constitution is very clear. But our country is not a theocracy. When we talk about a theocracy, it's a state that is controlled by religion. Again, we don't have an official religion. Take an example of a country like Pakistan. It's clearly stated in their constitution, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. A country like Costa Rica, it's very clear, the state religion is the Catholic religion. You go to a country like Bhutan, a country like Burma, Thailand, it's very clear, there is a state religion. They are not theocracies, but there is a religion that is recognized as the official state religion, okay? And I want to agree with Bishop Oginde, we are not a secular country. We are a country that believes in religion. Our national anthem is a witness to that, the preamble. And I remember some atheists wanted the word God removed from there, and I'm sure they will not succeed. Bishop, I'm sure you will not allow them to succeed in that.
Not just me, the ordinary Kenyan.
Yes,
The ordinary Kenyans will not allow
so
it.
we are not a secular country, but we don't have a state religion.
Yes.
Okay. I want to take my first break after we've had the test. Obviously, there's a lot to chime on this. State religion, theocracy, what is the line? Can it be drawn, or do we need even to have that line in the first place? We take a short break with all due respect. We'll be right back with plenty more of that discussion on the other side of the break. All right, with all due respect, welcome back. I did say we have the best panel for this. I do have Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome, who's a scholar on my right. I do have Bishop Oginde, who's the chairman, still the chairman of the
Evangelical Alliance of
Yes. And I still have Christopher Rosana, advocate and author. All right, gentlemen, we're an instant conversation, but just before we started, we had some bites to set the stage. My director tells me now they are ready, so let's play them and then come back to this discussion.
It wasn't my design, it was God's design. You know, when things got difficult for David, God raised an army for him, you know, in that cave. He raised hustlers, actually, because these were people with debts. Many of my people are in Fuliza. So many of them had all manner of challenges, you know, and that's the situation we are in Kenya. So whenever I went to church in some areas, there used to be so many people making noise all over the place, the Hustler Nation. And I used to tell the church, please, just bear with me. This is the army God has also given to me. Like the other one of the hustlers in David's situation.
I want to confirm to you today that in the hands of President William Ruto, the church is very safe. And I want to say today, for the record, that the ascendancy of William Ruto and I to the presidency is one of the great miracles of the Almighty God. Because had it been the wish of human beings, we would not be here. They had different ideas of where we should be. And some of those ideas were not very nice. But God had a different plan for us.
Yesterday when I was thinking about this meeting, this service, and praying for it, the Lord reminded me of his words in the book of Zechariah chapter 14 verses 16. The Bible says, and people will go up to Jerusalem year after year to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And I thought and I think that this is a place where people will come year after year for a Thanksgiving. And so, the church, I want to tell you that this is not just the last service we are having. You will be coming here month after month to give thanks to the Lord because he has done us good. When the Lord answers your prayer, you go to give thanks. And you will not give thanks just once, but we will keep coming to this altar that the fathers have laid today here in State House. As an intercessor, I'm very excited. I feel the doors have been opened. And thank you so much, our President, for allowing us intercessors to walk in this compound today to pray. We are very excited.
All right, with all due respect, that's just a bit of the flavor, but lays the conversation on Wild Network. Let me start with you. Just putting that, you're the one who corrected this conversation and said, you know, church, you know, but you prefer religion. Watching this, where does that put you? Does that leave you? And how should we look at the state of affairs?
Again, with all due respect, I think we should start talking about the state and religion instead of talking about the church. Because when you talk about the church, you are leaving out many Kenyans, like me, who is a Muslim. There is a Hindu there, and we are all Kenyans. And the Constitution, if you look at the third paragraph in our preamble, it talks about us being proud of our ethnic and religious diversity. And I keep on telling people this, and I told none other than the president himself when he was campaigning. I met him at Serena because of the statement that he had made that Kenya is a Christian country and I have no apologies to make. And he corrected that. He said, what I meant by that is that, because for me I asked him, where is my place under a Ruto presidency? And he corrected that. And it's on record. And he said, what I meant is exactly what Bishop Oginde has said here, that Kenyans are God-fearing people. And I want us to remain at that. And this debate should be discussing that, about the state and religion, so that I feel that I'm included. Now, when our First Lady says here that this will be a tabernacle, that is a biblical, I think, concept. I have no problem with that, because if I was in the shoes of His Excellency William Ruto, after this task of campaigning and then at long last I ascend to the throne, I would turn to God and celebrate that and give thanks to God. But as a Muslim, how would I do it? I would do it according to my faith. Bishop Oginde would do it according to their faith. So they did it according to their faith, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've only a problem when it becomes now a state function. I have a problem with that. And when it looks like it's excluding others. But when we talk about the freedom of worship, that freedom of worship includes even the president himself and the first family and everybody. And let them celebrate worship in the way they believe in. So there is no problem with that. The question is, in what space? In what space should I do that? For example, if it was me in State House, I would maybe invite all the sheikhs from Saudi Arabia and other places to come and celebrate with me. But what would that make the other Kenyans feel? I would be very concerned about that. So nothing wrong with celebrating, nothing wrong with saying this will continue every month.
It's just a space for you.
For me, it's a space because State House. What does that mean? Do I have some space there myself? Yes, I have some space there. Okay. I want that space to be protected also.
Bishop, to move this forward, the question of just how the space, and while we agree that we all have individual spaces to profess our faith and together come together, in terms of this sort of national space where you're the leader, And what, just to piggyback on the point of Sheikh Lithome, at what point do we say that this is the symbol of, of presidency, and this is my faith, this is in person, and this is what's happening in public? And is there a danger to sort of exclude others?
Very good question. The way I understood, I totally agree with my brother Lithome and what he has said. In fact, he has used very similar words as I have used in where people have asked me this same question. That there are two or three things that we can say about the prayer that took place in State House. The first one is what he said about Thanksgiving. And the team there said, the president and the deputy president, together with their families, said this is a thanksgiving to God for what he has done for us. And that is quite in order for people to come back and give thanks to God. The second one, I don't know whether the clip will be played but it was said, he said, after this group prayer, I would like some of the pastors and bishops to come and pray in the offices.
Yes.
In our offices. So he said he was going to call a few people of the bishops and pastors to go and pray with him, pray for them in their offices. That's a second issue. Then what the First Lady has mentioned about the regularity or frequency with which these kinds of prayers will be held.
Yeah.
So to me, I see those as three separate issues that each should be looked at independently. The first issue of Thanksgiving, I think it is right and proper that they called for these Thanksgiving prayers. And I don't think that we should spend too much time. Right. The second one is about praying in the offices of State House, the place that we have talked about. As a pastor, I don't know whether it happens in the Islamic religion, but in the Christian religion, it is our practice, and many people have gone to many offices. When a person is appointed into a new office, that they invite their pastor or their spiritual leader to come and pray for them in that office. That happens even when a person is going into a new home or a house and so on. So you go and pray with them in that premise. So we would go and if it is whether it is a government official, I've done that several times. Somebody who is a member of our church has been appointed a CS or a PS or a head of a department or whatever, and they say, Pastor, before I enter into my office, I would like you to come and pray with me in that office. So I go and we pray together with them in the office, even though it is a government office. So if this is what the president was doing, again, from a Christian point of view, I see no problem, because it is a one-off event, because he will not be getting into his office every day. That he will want people to go and pray with him every day.
Yeah.
But this one-time event where he calls on his spiritual leaders to come and pray with him. And again, according to what our brother Lithome has said, it will be the people who believe in his faith. So he may not call Muslims to go and pray for him in his office, because this is an expression of his personal faith. Now, the third one, which we talked about, can these types of prayers be held continuously? I think that's regularly. I think that is where now we have to say, if there is a need for other prayers to take place in State House, they would have to be all-inclusive. And this has happened many times. We have been with him in many prayer meetings at State House, where we have the Hindus, the Muslims, the Christians, and so on, because this is a public event, a national event. And so in that, I would say the president and the deputy president would have to be sensitive to the fact that they are presidents not just for the Christians, but for all of us as Kenyans, and our expression of faith, therefore, on a public national event would have to take that into account. He is perfectly free to call a few of us in the privacy, not a public like that one, to go and pray with him in his office on a daily basis.
Yes.
There's nothing
There's
wrong
no
with
problem with that.
There's no problem with that.
Yeah.
We can go there and pray with him on a daily basis.
Morning, evening.
Morning, evening,
Yeah, absolutely.
as often
Yeah,
as possible.
yeah, yeah.
Because that is private expression of faith.
Yes.
And this, since this is his residence and this is where he's doing his thing, we will go, we will pray with him in private but if he is to gather a national gathering platform like that, then obviously it requires that there is an appreciation of our religious diversity.
Christopher, does any of this make you, a bit comfortable, or all of this just makes you a bit, squeamish about this whole event?
Well, for me, I think I'm quite pleased that most of the positions I was going to say have already been covered by both of them. So I'll just focus on something else that arose from that. I do agree with them on the issue of the expression of the religion as a personal question, that we can't divorce the personal, private religion of the president and his Thanksgiving desire or whatever it may be. But we have to, my place and my response to that is that we are operating within a constitution. That is the first thing we have to remember. The constitution says that the president is supposed to be a symbol of national unity. And then we go to Article 32, which says that no person should be prevented from the free exercise of religion or religion to be used as a test for employment or barring them from something. And now we go backwards. We go to the preamble, which says that it recognizes God, and then, but Article 8 says that there is no state religion. How do you reconcile those? Now, the reason I point those out is because there was a statement that under the new presidency, the church is very safe in the new government. But now that is, we have to judge things not from their intentions, but from their possible consequences. Yeah. Because if we say that the church is safe in the hands of the new government, what are we saying about Article 8? Because Article 8, on saying that there is no state religion, means that the state should remain neutral as to whatever religion its constituents decide to practice. Right. And at the same time, it should not bar them from expressing that religion which they choose. But why is there a warning that there should be no state religion? Is because it realizes that the private person expressing their own religion or expressing whatever creed they may have may run into problems if suddenly the state starts to enforce laws or create laws or to be in league with any religion, so much so to the dissatisfaction or discomfort of some, or even under the pain of life and death, as we've seen from history. So that is the reason we see that it may be a time for us to be cautious to say that it sounds very nice to say that the church is safe or the religion is safe in the government, but in fact, when that has happened, when the church has been safe or put itself in the hands, or any religion, in fact, has put itself in the hand of any government, it ends up badly for both of them. They destroy each other and then destroy the citizenry. So it is from the possible consequences of that league. It is not from the face value of the peaceful coexistence of the same, because the fact that Article 8 says there should be no state religion doesn't mean that state and religion should be strangers, or rather, or even that the state and religion should be enemies. It means simply that the state should be neutral and remain in its sphere, but at the same time not interfere with any sphere of religion where it is practiced. So that is why I believe that the only thing that I would have raised is as to being safe in the hands of the government.
Yeah. Is that a bit sort of problematic?
And I'm glad you corrected it. You said that religion is safe in the hands of the government. So we want actually to correct our deputy president and tell him, please correct that and say religion is safe in the hands of the government. And that makes me very comfortable. When we have a person who is God-fearing, believe me, Bishop, I believe we are safer as Kenyans, because this is a person who will remind and tell him, on the 13th of September 2022, you stood before God and man, and you placed your hands on the Bible, and you swore in the name of God to protect the Constitution. And I will remind him, that Constitution to which you swore before you vowed before man and God and held the Bible, tells you that we have people who are diverse in this country. And it tells you, that Constitution that you vowed in broad daylight, tells you that every person has the right of practicing their religion, including yourself, Your Excellency. So practice your religion and allow me to practice my religion. Let me feel safe. And I think we are safer, actually, in a person, you know, in my religion, there's something we say, ittaqillah. Bishop, when you are told by somebody, ittaqillah, it means fear God. And that only has an impact on a person who knows what it means, you know. So for me, actually, it's good to have a person who fears God, and I'll quote the Bible for him, I'll quote the Quran for him and tell him, fear God, and remember, it is God that has given you that position. And you are answerable for every person in this country, regardless of their religion. So for me, this is very good. So the question is, we don't want anybody to feel left out. We want everybody to feel included. So in the statements, and I want to agree with you, and you said you don't know whether Muslims do this. Believe me, when Duale, I'm giving this as an example, he's my friend, he goes to his new office and I'm praying for him to go there. The first thing he'll do, I'm sure he'll call some sheikhs, not bishops. He will call some sheikhs because he believes in that religion, and they will do a prayer there, but privately. It will not be done publicly. Right. So I want to agree with you. Let them continue praying every day. More than 5, we do it 5 times a day. Let them do it, but privately. But when we make it, even speak in tongues, even in that prayer, speak in tongues, no problem. Yeah.
Cast out demons.
Let us remind ourselves of the Pentecost there every day, but privately. But when we make it speaking in tongues, a state house affair every other month, I have a problem with that.
Bishop, there's the question, the urgent question again raised from here, from this point, that so the agreement of personal faith is guaranteed, and that cannot be taken away. Is there a thing like having too much religion?
If you talk about religion now in the general sense of religion, I will call it, what I would have problem with is religiosity.
Right.
There are people who are religious but have no faith, you know? So they
explain that to me. How does that work?
How does that work?
Yes.
I can, for example, I can identify myself as a Christian. But if you look at my life, there's nothing Christian about it. The things that I do, the way I conduct myself, if you put it against the Bible, it is far from it.
Does not tally.
It does not tally. And I'm afraid to say that there are many Kenyans who are like that. So they are just practicing religiosity. They are not Christians, they are not Muslims. They have the name, they will fill in the form. Like in the last census, 86% filled in the form and said they are Christians. Now, if those people were practicing Christianity, we would not have the corruption that we have. We would not have some of the vices that we have.
But we do have corruption, we do have murderers, we have rapists. In fact, in this parliament,
yes,
all these people show up and they are people of faith somehow.
That's what I'm saying. So your question was, is there too much religion?
Yeah.
Yes, we can have too much religion where there are people who are simply professing religion, but they are not living according to the tenets and requirements of that religion. I have a problem with that. But a person or people who are serious about practicing their faith, I would say there is no too much. Because the more they practice their faith, the better we are, you know? The better we are. So I wish all Kenyans could be that religious, you know? We would have a better nation. We would have a better nation. What we have are people who appear to have faith or who profess to have faith, but they don't practice it. And so we have a situation where people are even saying, these Christians,
yeah,
you know? It is not these Christians, it is these religious people, you know? So I have no problem with too much Christianity, speaking about the faith, I have no problem with too much Christianity, but I have problems with too much religiosity.
Rosanna?
I believe that that question can be split into two. Is there too much religion? As a religious question, as he says, if you now break it down to Christianity, you could say no. But as a legal question, it is a real legal question that yes, you can have a lot of religion as a legal test. If when you have the religion itself being practiced so much so that we are preventing, or let's say we're using it to bar certain people or excluding other people in the name of religion or in the name of praying or doing this and that, that you can actually have too much of it as a legal test. But privately speaking, you can't really, I don't think I'm an authority just to speak as to that because I'm not divinely trained. I would only
but I
you
used
stay
to
away from
practicing.
well, I would say yes. I would say yes. That I divinely, I could say that yes, I'm divinely practicing law.
Yeah.
No. Practicing religion.
Practicing religion, yes.
Yes.
What I know is that from my legal training is that how do you know there's too much religion in a system of government? The issue of too much is not a question of quantity, but a question of effect. So that if we can only, I can't say that we have so many cases from our High Court as the Constitutional Court to use as example. So I'll have to defer to the US and the UK perhaps. The most ready example I can give from the US was that from their history, before they created the First Amendment, they said that the First Amendment says that the government shall not establish any law respecting religion or preventing any exercise of it. Now, that, no matter how clear it looks, it still creates problems for them. It has created problems for them up to now. The question is, how much should the government show tolerance to religion, or how much should it practice it? Because that article does not mean that public servants cannot express the religion.
Yes.
But the question is, when a public servants come to their office and in the provision of service or execution of their duties, they use religion as a basis to prevent provision of service to others, then the question of too much religion crops up, because it is not a question of how much they are practicing, but a question of the consequence they're using of the religion to those who are expecting service neutrally from them. So that is, the issue of too much is a question of context, and if it is questioned from a legal context as to using it to bar others, it is yes. But if it's from a question of religion per se, then I will defer to my betters who are trained in that.
For me, simply put,
Yeah.
you know, when now you purport to put a limitation to my religion, it's like you're trying to interpret that religion for me. I think the best thing is allow me to practice my religion the best way I know how, but the limit should be this. I should know that my rights end where your rights begin. My freedom to move my hands stops where your nose begins. So I should not swing my hands because there's freedom of movement,
yes.
and then hit your nose.
Yeah.
So for me, too much religion will only be religion that interferes with the rights of the others. So let me practice my Islam the best way I know how, the best way I believe in, but I should not interfere with Bishop Oginde's religion and his freedom also to practice his religion. That will now be too much. So let the people in power practice their religion as much as they want, but let that practice not interfere with the rights of others. For me, that now will be too much. So that will be the limit. And that goes to the Constitution. And that's why we have the limitation clause. If you look at the Bill of Rights, it begins by telling you the limitations that are there. That exercise your freedoms, but you don't have absolute freedoms. And that includes Article 32. I have the freedom to practice my faith, but there is a limit. As I'm exercising that freedom, enjoying that right, I should not interfere with the rights of others. I should not violate the rights of others. So let us be as religious as possible. Let us practice our religion as much as possible. I enjoy his friendship. I enjoy his friendship very much because I know he's committed. He's a committed Christian, okay? But he respects the limits here. And the more he practices his religion, the better a friend he becomes. and it will make Kenya a better place.
Let's flip this in the final part of this debate, because I've been here for a long time. How do we deal with this sort of urgent problem, an urgent question that the political class then seems to want to hijack some of these processes, you know, either religion and that sort of thing. But we do know that, for instance, this parliament has the highest threshold of people who have sort of these Chapter 6 questions and problems, but they are also very religious. How do we start unbundling this in public in real terms, so that we just, you know, we see whoever is the members of parliament, senators, governors, we know, you know, we even have rapists in this parliament. How do we unbundle these two things? No, there's a cases in court. Bishop, how do we, in material terms, start to solve this problem of actual problem in the political class and the question of what we profess and what we think sort of this faith is supposed to be, that this person should be this person, but we don't know about this other sort of fact?
Yeah. I think this is very important for us to recognize that, as me, that I live according to the law of the land. Unless that law is in violation of the law of the Lord. That's the only time I can defy the law of the land. But otherwise, we are commanded to live by the law of the land in fulfillment of the law of the Lord. So there is no one who can hide under religion to do anything that is contrary to the laws of the land. There's no one. So I have seen situations, I must say, in this country where even religious people like us, pastors, bishops, sheikhs, and others, have been, the government has been afraid to call us to account on matters that are clearly in violation of the laws of the land, because I am a religious leader. It doesn't apply. So if there's a person, whether in parliament, in government, even the president or any other person, who is in violation of the law of the land, let the laws of the land be applied without fear or favor. Because as I said, the two work together, not separately.
Again, in real terms, the same question, because that's what everyone is asking online, that yes, we have these, you know, beautiful laws, and we all can proclaim what we want to proclaim, but then there's other facts of who people know. The people with active cases in court of stealing money, all right, spiriting millions of shillings, but they're still there. How does this sort of concept help us to deal with this, especially in the next 5 years?
Well, I think for me, I look at it from the fact that it's true, yes, that the Constitution has set down, Chapter 6 has set down the, I would say, character tests for whoever should be in office. But at the same time, we shouldn't, I think the question also leaves out a part of it. The same people who say that we don't know what to do, who then voted them in power into office? That's another question we have to ask. It's a more complicated, I think it will be called a multivariate problem. There are so many factors involved that it's not a question of that we have a leader does not qualify under the law. The question first is, how did exactly this person get into that position? It is not that they, I think I would partly answer that by referring to Bishop Oginda's earlier answer, where he said that we are a religious people. And he has said the same as well. And we may partly find an answer to that by realizing that when the political class comes to campaign and comes to appeal to us to vote for them, they appeal to the thing that is common among us, which is religion. So they come in the cloak of saying that they are ordained by God, or God has deemed that it's me this time. And when they appeal, it's an appeal to emotion that is sophisticated but cloaked under religion. So that they are appealing to emotion but really using religion. Why? Because if the audience makes the connection between God and this person, they do not go beyond assessing that, well, I don't think that actually they qualify under the laws of the land, as he said. So the question begins way back before we start to reconcile that we have leaders who do not qualify.
Right.
It is a question of religion being a common factor among us. We have let go of our wisdom and ability to analyze leaders for who they are, rather than we listen to the creeds they perpetuate every other 5 years, and then we use that as the basis of character, so that we have replaced chapter 6 with a good, well-rehearsed speech on what the God has decided this time. So I think that is the problem, and that is the root of the issue. And I do not think I could possibly conjure up any resolution as to how we can reconcile the two, where in fact the problem is way, way back in the line.
Yes.
Yes.
Sheikh.
Very good laws, a very beautiful chapter 6, leadership and integrity. Where is the problem? It's application of the law.
Yeah.
So I want to agree with Wakili here. I don't think there is any leader who has elected themselves. Yeah. It is we who put them in place. So actually, people are as good as the leaders they elect. So if they are a reflection of who we are as a people, we are the people who, again, the ethnicity of in this country, because when you look at leadership and ethnicity, you cannot separate the two. And there is nothing wrong with ethnicity. I did not apply to God that I be born in a certain community. It's God's plan. But the problem is when we use it sometimes at the peril of, at the expense of integrity, because ni mtu wetu, ni mtu wangu. And we've had
in fact, they say ni muzi wetu.
Muzi
Yes,
wetu.
ni muzi wetu. That is the correct term.
Yeah. For me, actually, I want to point out that the way we have taken ethnicity, for us, it's everything. As long as I share the same ethnicity with you, it doesn't matter what you do. Ni mtu wetu. And even when you're caught with your hands in the coffers, and I'll say mtu wetu anatafutwa. Naona ni mtu wetu tunatafutwa.
Anasumbuliwa.
Mtu wetu anasumbuliwa. And when the person is on the other side, again, when it comes to politics, when the person is on the other side, you say bad things about that person. When the person crosses, or you cross over to that other side, then all the bad things that you used to say about that person,
good.
The person is cleansed. I don't know at what stage they are cleansed. So this is the problem.
It's a refining process that happens.
So we are not faithful to what we have written in the Constitution. Yeah. That's why we have a problem. So there is nothing wrong with the laws, but it's just ink on paper. That is the problem.
My final question, 30 seconds, but they told me to leave, but I must ask this question because it's been asked online. Are leaders elected by God, Bishop?
Leaders are not, God doesn't do elections. Elections are done by people.
Yes.
But God appoints leaders.
Okay.
Yes. So that process is sometimes complicated in our minds. But let me use a biblical example. The first king of Israel was called King Saul. King Saul was appointed by God, but he was the request or desire of the people. So up to that point, there was no king in Israel. God was the king over Israel. It was a theocracy. So, but the people got to that place where they felt they needed a human king. So they came to the prophet Samuel and said, give us a king like other nations. Samuel was very disappointed and said, you cannot have this. But God came and said, give them what they want. And so Saul was appointed king over them. And he told them what the king was going to do. He's going to nyanyasa you, he's going to take your things and so on. So we as the people sometimes request or vote for or elect the kings we want. And God says, come and you're here.
Chukua. Okay, I need to go. 10 seconds. Rosanna?
Well, I would say that, yes, I would agree in major part with him that, yes, God doesn't do election, but I think the deeper question there is the fact that the political class uses that line to hoodwink us,
yes,
that they have been ordained by God. And really, God, in actual fact, doesn't do it. But it's the fact that I don't think we fully understand the confluence between God's sovereignty and his expression of his sovereignty through persons' free will and in elections for us to fully answer that question. But yes, that line is actually used to hoodwink us every election.
Why are you allowing yourself to be hoodwinked?
I'm not being hoodwinked. I'm saying I'm putting myself in the shoes of the common person.
Not you as an individual.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not hoodwinked myself.
God has given us the ability to decide
Yes.
the kind of leaders that we want. And we should do that. And my parting word is this. Can the leaders that we have put in positions of leadership fear God in what they are doing? And if they fear God, then Kenya will
We are
change.
okay.
Yeah, we are okay.
Right.
Fear of God.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sheikh Ibrahim Lidome, thank you very much for coming tonight. Please come again and again. This discussion will continue. Bishop Oginda, of course, we're just in the beginning of this. I'd like to have you again and again. And of course, Christopher Rozana, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts tonight. It's been very, very rewarding to listen to the gentlemen and how we should see the state of affairs with all respect. Please have a lovely night. My name is James Smart.